The Kawasaki H2 SX SE. What a motorcycle this is, and perhaps one of the biggest questions that you will have about this motorcycle is which is better, this or the ZZR1400. Now, I've had the privilege and the pleasure to have ridden both now. Definitely go and check out our review of the H2 SX SE so you can get a better idea of the specs and what it's like from an experience point of view from an average rider, but someone who is looking between these two motorcycles. There are parts of the world where you have the option of buying both, but which one should you buy? Well, let's jump on and find out, shall we? But what an experience this is, and I think the one thing that you can't take away from this bike is how rich it is in techie goodness. This has got absolutely everything you could ever need. Again, check out our review. We go through in detail all the different bits and pieces that this motorcycle has in terms of techie features. Now, as always, massive thank you to Completely Motorbikes in Gloucester for letting me have a go on this bike for you guys. They've got dealerships all up and down the country, and I'm sure they'll do you a fantastic deal on any new and used motorcycles. Here we go. Sounds very similar to my ZH2. Naturally, this is the same engine pretty much. Now, I did make a few references to my ZZR1400 whilst doing the ride review, but I did want to do a dedicated video on this because I know that this is perhaps one of those decisions, because you're paying a lot of money for either of these two bikes. This is more expensive though because of all that techie goodness, right? This bike is 23, 24, 25 grand, whereas the ZZR1400 you can get from about 16 grand. That's from when they were brand new. Used, I expect that to be a pretty similar story between the two bikes. This thing does have power, man. It really does, and I can't argue with that. But I do think that my ZZR has just a little bit more. Remember, there's no replacement for displacement. It's a 1441cc versus a 998cc. Granted, this is a supercharged motorcycle, but ZZR does produce more torque, especially in second and third gear, I found. Sixth gear, there's nothing really to this bike. There's not a lot of throttle, so if you're doing things like overtakes, well, you might have to drop down a gear or two, surprisingly enough, whereas on the ZZR, you wouldn't have to. But it doesn't take anything away from the fun factor of this bike either. But in terms of ergonomics, they're pretty similar actually. The seats are just as comfy as one another, and the reach to the handlebars isn't too different to the ZZR either. I mean, that's me sitting upright, and that's the reach of the handlebars. So actually quite far away and quite sporty, which is nice. I mean, of course, that's the name, right? Sport Tourer. You want it to be a little bit sporty, don't you? Alright, so in terms of techie goodness, I mean, the H2 SX SE beats out the ZZR. Even in kind of standard form, just the regular H2 SX beats out the ZZR in terms of techie features. I mean, just with that quick shifter as well. I wish the ZZR had a quick shifter. I could forgive it for everything else, the cruise control, the big screen. I could have sacrificed all that if it had a quick shifter. This thing obviously beats out the ZZR in terms of pure techie goodness, techie features and all that. This thing, I mean, keyless ignition is wicked. But in terms of the riding experience, now this is difficult for me to answer. I think they're both pretty good in terms of the raw riding experience. I do have to give it, I think, the edge to the ZZR1400 just because it has got a little bit more torque. Now, in terms of weight, these are both weighing in pretty much exactly the same or near thereabouts. This is weighing in at 270 odd kilograms and the ZZR is weighing 265 kilograms. So 5 kilograms, I mean, you could argue that is significant, but they weigh pretty much the same really when you think about it. Just trying to think if this bike feels any more or less nimble than the ZZR, right? I think this bike's got the edge in terms of just the way how it feels if you're going to lean it over. I think this bike probably leans over a little bit nicer than ZZR. You do have to lug that bike around. It might just be because of the wheelbase. I think if I'm not mistaken, that this bike's got a shorter wheelbase, but I don't know that off the top of my head. Okay, so in terms of fuel economy, I think the ZZR is going to be better than the H2SX. That supercharger will suck a lot more fuel, especially if you're riding it spiritedly, as you should be. This bike is a load of fun, and it deserves to be ridden spiritedly. Same as the ZZR, you should be riding them both in a very similar kind of fashion. They're both very fun bikes to ride. Now, if you're riding them sensibly and you're looking to get the most MPG out of them, I still think that the ZZR might just about have the edge over the H2SX. I don't think it's going to be much, but the average on this bike is about 37 MPG according to the dashboard, whereas on my ZZR it's more like 44, 45 MPG. So it's, you know, over a long journey that's going to matter, but over short journeys that might not be something that concerns you. But I have the same thing with my ZH2 as well. The ZH2 does consume fuel at a faster rate than any of my other motorcycles do, but that's just the nature of supercharged engines, I suppose. Of course, if you do ride them sensibly and you do ride them for fuel economy, they can be really good as well. I'm not gonna take that away from them, but of course, when you should be riding these bikes properly. When I say properly, you should be riding them to have fun. First and foremost, all these bikes, you should be riding them for fun. And if you're doing that, well, I think when you're comparing these bikes to the ZZR, well, I think the ZZR is gonna win on that front. Now, one thing that this motorcycle does have that my ZZR does not: center stand. And you know what? I think for a touring bike, a center stand does make a lot of sense. Especially when it comes to just things like maintenance and what have you, a center stand is really good. Now, of course, you can get aftermarket center stands for the likes of the ZZR, but it's nice when they come stock. Now, this H2SX SE does have heated grips as well. I can't remember if that is just on the SE model or if that is just the standard model. I am not sure. That's something that you will have to double check. But again, you can get aftermarket heated grips with the ZZR if you wanted to. Now, in terms of things like panniers and what have you, I think storage space is going to be pretty much the same between these two bikes, very similar at least. Now, Kawasaki, I don't think they do brackets anymore for top boxes on any of their bikes. I think they just do like pannier racks. But you can get aftermarket top box racks for both of these bikes, both the H2SX and the ZZR1400, if you really wanted to, ZX-14. So that is, you know, again, these bikes in a lot of ways are very, very comparable, and I find myself struggling really to pick them apart, to be honest with you. The biggest thing that pushes me towards the ZZR being the better motorcycle between these two bikes is because it's cheaper. Simple as that. If Kawasaki could have hit maybe 20 grand price tag, maybe 20 grand, I think this bike would be worth it all day long. But at 22, 23, 24, 25 grand, I'm just not sure that when you compare it to the likes of the ZZR1400, which arguably gives you a better overall riding experience, the fact that it can tour pretty much just as good as this bike can, I mean, I've got to give it to the ZZR really overall. But the thing is, this bike is the ultimate tourer, so naturally you are going to be paying a premium for it. This is a super tourer in every sense of the name, every sense of the word. This is honestly fully kitted out, ready to go. And if you're safety conscious and you know, you want that radar, you want that adaptive cruise control, if you want electronically adjustable suspension as well, just a click of a button, you know, there's a little dude down here, right? If I hit, no, not that one, I'm gonna hit this button and hold it. It's not gonna let me do it whilst I'm riding, but if you just hold this button here, you can change the the way how the suspension is going to ride and feel, all right? For things like if you're taking a passenger or if you're taking luggage with you, it's just really convenient and really easy to do. I think this bike's got a lot going for it, but it is going to be a tougher sell than the likes of the ZZR1400 if you can buy them both from new in your country. Here in the UK, well, and Europe, I think you're not going to get that choice. You've got this or a used ZZR1400. They stopped selling them here back in, I think 2021, I think was the last year, maybe 2022. But of course, I mean, that is still the comparison that you need to make if you're buying used. If you're buying a used one of these, how long have these bikes been out for now? Since 2018, I think it is. They've pretty much been, I don't know if they've been exactly the same in form. Maybe this one's got more features than the kind of first run of these bikes. I'm not sure, but the thing is, when you've got that screen and you've got all these techie features that I really appreciate as a rider, it's really tough. But from an outright riding experience, I think the ZZR probably takes the win here. This bike's a lot of fun. I don't want to take anything away from it. All right, if you have got the cash and you are the rider that wants the ultimate touring experience, well, this is it. All right, this has got buckets of fun. No, it's not going to have the same amount of torque as the likes of a ZZR1400, but it doesn't matter. Honestly, this thing still has a load to offer in terms of riding experience, and the fact you've got all these techie features as well really does make it a worthwhile purchase in my humble opinion. Like I mentioned, just the fact that it's got a quick shifter, I mean, I love quick shifters. I think they are awesome on street bikes. And the fact that this has got one and ZZR doesn't, well, that's definitely a win, I think. And you know, when you're looking at things like cruise control and stuff like that, it makes a lot of sense on these kinds of bikes. I know that is a little bit kind of like later on. It would be nice if Kawasaki were able to retrofit later models of the ZZR1400 with cruise control. It doesn't have to be adaptive cruise control like this bike has, but just a form of cruise control would have been nice. In terms of riding experience, the proof is in the pudding. This thing is producing 137 newton meters of torque, whereas the ZZR is producing 160 newton meters of torque. That is a significant difference. And even though, no, you're not going to be using all of that torque all the time, the fact that you've got more to begin with means you're going to have more torque lower in the RPMs, which is usable fun. You know, rather than having horsepower, which you've got to be, you know, you've got to be doing ridiculous speeds, 60, 70 mile an hour before you can actually start experiencing the full horsepower of a motorcycle. The torque is really what makes a motorcycle fun when you're riding it on the street. And I mean, I think the clutch feel is really nice as well. Both of the ZZR and the H2SX have got hydronic clutches. They both feel very good. And I mean, just riding around kind of doing slow speed stuff doesn't feel labored at all, in my opinion. At least no more labored one over the other, I don't think. The ZZR does struggle, I think, in city environments, but it's not so bad. If anything, this bike probably does a little bit better in city environments. But remember, that's not really what these bikes are designed for. They're designed for mile munching, first and foremost. But yeah, 210 horsepower at the crank for the ZZR1400, 200 horsepower at the crank for H2SX, quite similar in that regard, but the fact that the torque is just on another level in the ZZR compared to this, I think it does have to take the win here for me. But then again, if I did have the money, because I think the ZZR is perhaps the best bang for buck between the two, but if I had the money, I think I may consider one of these bikes, you know. If I had 25 grand, maybe, but this is a premium motorcycle, whereas, I mean, yeah, the ZZR1400 was a premium motorcycle back in its day. It's not like this. this is on another level of kind of luxury. This is the luxury level when it comes to motorcycles. This is kind of like, you're looking at Italian level kind of money for this bike. And you do get a lot for it, but if it was just a little bit cheaper, I think this thing would take a ZZR, I think, in a lot of ways. And arguably it would be the best bang for buck motorcycle at that point if it was just a little bit cheaper. But when you're looking at paying pretty much 10 grand more, or near enough 10 grand more, that's a bit of a hard sell. But honestly, this bike is amazing. And I don't know, if you're an older person who maybe retired and things like that, and you're looking for one of these touring bikes, this is really damn good. And I don't think, from new at least, I don't think you can get a touring bike that's any better than this right now here in the UK. So that's not taking anything away from this bike, all right? This is the best of the best right now. And if you wanted the best of the best, well, here it is. Here you have it. But if you're comparing between the two, well, I think riding experience-wise, ZZR does take it, but techie features, things like that, rider aids, yeah, this thing has aced it. Anyway, everyone, this has been an absolute pleasure riding this bike for you guys on behalf of Completely Motorbikes. It's been an epic experience, and I've loved every second on this motorcycle. Genuinely, I think it's a fantastic bike in every single way. But when you compare it to the likes of the legend that is the ZZR1400, there's just something about that bike, man. There's something about the way how that motorcycle feels. It just feels like it's on a slightly different level to this, which is surprising, because I actually think that the ZH2 is on a different level to the ZZR. So that's really odd, even though both these bikes, the ZH2 and the H2SX, have exactly the same engine and produce exactly the same horsepower and torque. The fact that the ZH2, I think, has a shorter wheelbase and is significantly lighter than either the H2SX or the ZZR1400. I mean, you know, the ZH2, I still think it's probably the best H2. But that's just purely in terms of the riding experience. But honestly, thank you ever so much for joining me today on today's ride. Definitely go and check out our ride review of the H2SX. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss any more of our videos going forward. And we'll catch you all in the next video, everyone. Take care. Ride safe.